We are officially in season 2 of the Go Time podcast, and we have as a highlight for this season 2 of the most exciting campaigners we have ever had at Indiegogo. I'm going to introduce both Julie and Scott Brusaw. Julie and Scott Brusaw are the campaigners behind the Solar Roadways campaign. Thank you. For those of you that are new to Indiegogo, Solar Roadways was a campaign about 2 years ago, I believe in June of 2014.
April through June.
April through June. Were those an eventful April through June of 2014 for you? Yes, very eventful. We're going to talk a little bit about that. For those that don't know, Scott and Julie developed Solar Roadways, which we'll talk about, a way to actually capture solar energy on the road or on any flat surface, actually, and ran a campaign on Indiegogo in mid-2014, raised over $2 million for creating their solar roadways. Since then, they've been at right around that time, we were at the Maker Faire at the White House. Mm-hmm. We're also actually featured in President Obama's State of the Union address in the beginning of 2015. Yeah. Since then, they have been hard at work in developing the solar roadways and are about to, and will be able to announce with us some planned installations, actually. We're in season 2. First of all, let me introduce my co-host, Pam. Pam, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very good to be here.
All right. Pam Mangan's first time co-hosting. This is sort of like, for those, I think today, Brett is usually our primary host. Brett is out today. This is going to be sort of what it would have been like if Paul Schaefer ever hosted The Late Show with David Letterman. That's what I think it's going to be like for those of you. Okay. So Scott and Julie, first of all, welcome. Thank you. Thank you both for being here. Why don't we sort of start by just picking up where we left off? I believe the last time we met was about 2 years ago. You had completed the campaign and had just and then realized you had so many contributors to your campaign that there were, I believe, over 30,000 perks to fulfill. Is that correct?
There was. We had almost 48,000 donors, which equated to about 30,000 perks.
We broke your record for that, for the number of donors, which was an
Which was
honor.
really great
Very
until we
impressive.
started trying to fulfill orders. we had no contingency for this. We had no idea we'd have that many.
You don't expect that in the beginning, but...
So we had 4 generations of women, Julie, her mom, her daughter, and our granddaughter, licking stamps, putting them in envelopes, putting bumper stickers in. It just went on for months, it seemed. Then we hired some people. It took probably a full year to fulfill them all.
Wow. And what your campaign was different than a lot of our campaigns in that most of the perks, for the most part, people weren't receiving actual solar roadways. So what kind of things, what were some of the most popular perks that you had?
Not at all. They were things like T-shirts and coffee mugs and bumper stickers. And one of our really popular ones was a 30-second video where Scott and I stood on our solar parking lot and we made a custom 30-second video for people, and some of them told us exactly what they want to say. Thank me and my wife and our 3 kids and my dog. And some of them would just say, I don't care, I'm Bob, whatever you want to say. And others are like, well, can you talk about that snow melting feature because I live in Sweden and I really care about that. Or, they would give us some kind of an idea what they wanted to say. But either way, it sounds really good because it's only 30 seconds, but in reality, you have to get the camera ready, you have to read what they want, then you go out there, and sometimes it was winter, so we were freezing to death, or, but it was fun to do, though. I really enjoyed it, because we felt like we're having such a personal connection with those donors.
We thought it was a $100 donation for that perk, and we were thinking, what, we get 10, 15, 780, I believe it was. So it took us almost a full year to finish that, because we'd work on, during our campaign, we noticed on the West Coast here that the activity would die down around 11 p.m. So that's when we'd walk out to the parking lot, light it up, get the camera out, print out all the scripts, and we'd stand out there shooting videos till the sun came up the next morning. You can hear the crickets now, you can hear the coyotes, and here come the birds.
So we did that all night during the Indiegogo campaign, and then it went on past Indiegogo for a long time.
Wow. Were you able to reuse any of the content? Like if you had, like, say, 18 people named Bob that all wanted a video, could you just shoot one video and then send it to all the Bobs?
I don't think we had 18 Bobs. That would count.
I don't know, with over 40,000 contributions. Well, I don't know. I'm not fully familiar with how many Bobs there are in relation to the total population. And what else? So, I imagine I think we talked about this the last time you were here, but you were very busy with the campaign during the campaign, and then it sounds like very busy with fulfillment immediately after the campaign. How did things start to shift for you post campaign and sort of getting back to business?
Well, we used part of the money to buy a building, and that's been awesome, but the building we bought had to be renovated. So that was step one, getting that renovated, and one of our first employees helped us with that. Like, now create the building you're going to work in.
He said, "This is the third time I've had to build my own office."
For folks that don't know, you're based in Sandpoint, Idaho, right?
Are you guys familiar with Sandpoint?
Anybody?
No?
Nobody at Sandpoint, Idaho.
like
Near
a
Spokane,
population-
Washington, if you're familiar, or Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It's way up in the
It's
Panhandle.
got a population of about 8,000, so we went to look for a building. We needed office space and shop space. And in a town that small, it's hard to find anything. Well, we couldn't find anything with both. So we're looking at getting two different facilities, which would have been a headache. And we were looking at leasing initially, and we were looking at about $10,000 a month to lease. Not that, what in the heck does a building cost around here? So we wound up buying one much cheaper, and then just went a bit to
Which
what we
was
needed.
a great decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you both end up in Sandpoint? As I recall, you're both from California, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I was already there when we got married, and then when we first got married, I left and went to Ohio for a couple years, and
And
then
she
we
hated it.
and I didn't like it. So we
Oh,
came
then
back
like
to Idaho.
Ohio. Luckily,
Sorry.
Erica is
Sorry,
not here.
Ohio people.
Please, when Erica comes, that's not her. Okay, we're safe. When Erica comes back, please keep the Ohio on the down low. And for everybody that doesn't know, as I recall, Scott and Julie, you both met in preschool.
We
Is that
did.
correct? Isn't that astonishing?
We were 3 and 4 years old.
Wow.
We were in the same preschool, the same Sunday school, first grade class.
I remember they used to babysit myself and my brother after school.
Wow. So you made the decision to buy a building. As I understand it, I imagine that, as I understand from reading about it, that building, you were using that building for both as your office and for manufacturing?
Yeah, we have quite a lot of office space, so everybody's got their own office and a nice lobby where we still have T-shirts and things on display. And we have people come to see us from all over the world, and they just show up in our lobby, or previously to that, they were showing up at our house. Even though we live in the middle of nowhere, we have people just finding us. And we actually had to put up a gate because we had people on our driveway at 3 o'clock in the morning to
We
see
had
the
a parade of
parking lot.
cars coming up through and we live 10.5 miles off the highway, out in the middle of nowhere, no cell phone reception, no TV reception, anything. And we had a parade of cars coming up on our property. So we had to put an electric gate up, and because we live out in the middle of nowhere, there's no trash pickup, there's nothing. You just collect we have a trailer, we fill the trailer up, and then we go to a local dump and deposit it. And being out in the middle of nowhere, I do that in my pajamas. So I'm walking out to do a trash run in my pajamas. There's some tall, lanky kid down by the gate waving. He says, "I came from Belgium to talk to you." I said, "I'm going on a trash run. You want to go?" He says, "Sure." So he helped me take the trash out.
Yeah, it's so sweet. We've had people from Germany, Madagascar, Korea, Abu Dhabi, Switzerland, and it's
Saudi
just,
Arabia and
yeah,
everywhere.
they just come to, and they want to
They
spend
just show up
time
on the
with us. They
doorstep.
want to get their picture with us.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, in making the decision to actually do manufacturing there in Sandpoint, was there any expertise that you needed to try to bring closer, or did you have all of the expertise that you needed in manufacturing? Were there people in Sandpoint that could be helpful to you? Did you need any help in manufacturing? How did you get from an idea with a really good prototype to something that you could actually manufacture at volume?
The problem with this particular product is it's never been done before, so nobody has any expertise, so we learned along the way.
Yeah, there's nobody who's ever done this, so it's been us figuring it out all the way along.
And could you tell us a little bit about that? Like, did you do online research? Did you engage experts in manufacturing?
We did. We went to what was that called in San Antonio? It was a glass workshop. Now, I'm an electrical engineer and Julie's a therapist. We didn't know anything about glass. We know quite a bit now. But we went to a glass workshop because we didn't know how to manufacture glass, how to not manufacture. We buy it in sheets and rectangles. Then we cut it to a hexagon, then we put this macro texture on it. We take the parts we cut off, grind that up for what we call frit. We put it back on the surface and fire it on, and that gives you your traction. So we're recycling it right back onto itself. This we all learned to do ourselves, but we went to San Antonio to a glass show to figure out what kind of machines are available to help us do that. From that, we wound up buying a CNC machine that works on granite and glass. We got a lamination machine made for glass, a kiln, quite a few things that we didn't even know existed. And we had to learn on our own, basically.
And this, by the way, is, you can see it, is our travel panel. Whoops,
Loose connector.
loose connector. The real one is about this big, but we just made this one to take on airplanes
Here, I'll hold
so
it.
that we can show it to people. The
Got a wiggle
connection is,
connector,
The
right?
connection's a little bit, okay, and so again, everybody here, of course, our millions of listeners won't be able to see this, but I imagine this is smaller, you said, in terms of, not in thickness, but in width. The actual panels are much
about
larger.
4 square feet, yeah.
It's about, the actual
They're
panels are about
4.39 square feet and they weigh about 70 pounds.
and about 70 pounds. That's what I was just going to ask. In terms of what's in this panel, is it top to bottom? Is it the same as what's in?
It's
the
got all the
production
same
version?
features. It's got RGB LEDs. It's red, green, blue, so it can make 16 million different colors. It's got the solar cells inside. It's got a heating element on the back. It's not made like the actual panels because it's very scaled down.
Is it about the same thickness? Is
Yes,
it about
it's
an
about
inch?
an inch and a half thick.
About an inch and a half thick. And we're in manufacturing something of that. Were there things to learn in manufacturing something of that size and weight?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Huge learning curve. So we've been working on that, and we've made changes since Indiegogo. We were on our second iteration. Now this is the SR3. This is our third.
Oh, this is the third,
This
and
is
is
our
and
third
this is
prototype.
close to the current version.
Yes.
Yes.
This is the current version.
Yes.
And when you started manufacturing, I hope I didn't make that any looser. When you are the actual panels lit similarly to this one also? Are
Yeah.
there lights?
Yeah, except you have more options the bigger it is.
The bigger
of
one
course.
has 56 different LED clusters.
And so that we can all better understand the product, is there also software that controls how the lights are configured and so forth? I remember from your original video that there was the ability to issue sort of warnings in the road.
Yeah. So there's firmware in the panel itself. Each panel has a microprocessor. And I don't know if you saw when I turned it on, there was a little thumb drive on the side that has an antenna. So I talk to it that way, tell it which LEDs to light up. And the software, if you were to buy a driveway, you told me the dimensions, I put that into the software, and then you can paint the American flag on your driveway or anything you want by selecting the individual panels and telling it which LEDs to light up. And you can store that pattern. You can I've got 10 in there now, you can have as many as you want. So in other words, on the 4th of July, you might select pattern number 7 and it'll display an American flag on your driveway. If your kids are having a birthday party, number 8, and it'll show balloons. Number 9, anything you want.
And
you just
people
program it.
are just loving that holiday decoration option, not just for Christmas, but imagine any holiday, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, Easter, Halloween, anything you want, or your own family celebrations, your team colors, anything you want, the customer will be able to do. And we have found that that is one of the most popular things, that and the snow elimination feature for homeowners. They say, I don't want to have to shovel my driveway or plow it anymore, and I want to use your panels for my holiday decorating instead of getting out there and stringing up Christmas lights. So that's a really popular thing that people are just waiting for, but we're not offering it to homeowners quite yet.
And I'm really curious about that. So when you did the campaign, you wanted to further develop the development of the panels. Did you already have an eye towards what the initial installation of the panels would be?
Where it would be.
Like, yeah, where it would be. Yeah.
We knew we wanted the first installations to be in Idaho, the first public installations. And as it turns out, we bought that building in Sandpoint, and then the first installation, which is going in about 3 weeks, is in walking distance. It's less than a mile.
which is perfect. We've had so much hometown support, and our own hometown really wants a lot of installations. They'd like to be the first crosswalk, the first road, the first everything, which is ideal for us because then we can test it. We're right there.
And we told them, for instance, we're going to install SR3 this year, and then if SR4 comes out next year, we'll just swap it out for free because we want the latest and the greatest to be there. Sandpoint's a tourist town, and they love the idea. It's a town of about 8,000, but we have, world-class ski resort. We have a 50-mile-long lake. We got all kinds of. It's a 4-season resort. And this brings in tourism because we've had people all over the world say, just tell us when it's going in, we're planning our vacation, family vacation around it, we want to see it. And the city of Sandpoint, they're not paying anything for it. They got a grant through the state of Idaho, but they're anticipating that tourism alone will more than cover it. Because everybody that comes there is going to stay in the local hotels and eat in the local restaurants and shop in the local shops. So it could easily pay itself off in 6 months.
And because they're becoming tourist attractions in and of themselves, that's one of the reasons we don't want to offer it to homeowners just yet, because we learned with our own home, we had to put up a gate.
We lost all privacy.
So we're looking for pilot places that can handle, that can welcome and support that kind of tourism. So the first ones are public places in Sandpoint. It's a plaza in a downtown square by a fountain. For Missouri, it's a rest area that we're working with the Missouri DOT on. And then for Baltimore, it's the Inner Harbor. If any of you have been to Baltimore, the Inner Harbor is an awesome place.
I wanted to ask you guys, talking about your supporters and all of your hometown support and showing us the amazing LED display, I saw in one of your updates that you posted, see, the LEDs look amazing in sunlight, and this is dedicated to all of our supporters who've been explaining this to the naysayers. And I wanted to ask about, it sounds like you do have a really incredible base of supporters and what that's been like and what they've been doing to kind of evangelize the project.
We do, and we have, some of them know our project so well that they can answer questions as well as we can. Oftentimes I do all of our social media, and sometimes before I get to somebody, one of our supporters has already posted the answer, and very, very correctly, and then I'll just say, thank you, so-and-so, that was great. And they will go, when there's an article out, when people post comments under the article, a lot of our supporters will go there and they'll set the naysayers straight and explain to them that, yes, you can see LEDs in the sunlight, actually, because that was one of the things that one of the naysayers latched onto, that you can't see LEDs in the daytime, which we thought was pretty funny since you see LEDs all over every town in the daytime.
And so in response to your supporters, and it sounds like people are just getting really engaged and interested in this, was that part of the reason that you guys have the data collection site available for people to look at?
No, that was something different. When our first funding came in 2009 from the Federal Highway Administration. They gave us a phase 1, SBIR stands for Small Business Innovative Research Grant. And they asked us to, one of the things they worried about is if you lay a solar panel flat, how much degradation do you have in the solar collection? So the first thing we did, we're at like 49 degrees north, right up against the Canadian border. We laid one flat and laid one at the 72-degree angle, which is common for our area. And we compared the difference, and we saw the difference in energy harvesting in the dead of winter, which was like 31% difference at that time. So to know the difference, and that's the only test we did, we couldn't have picked a worse place to test solar, is right on the Canadian border. So we've since gone to Arizona and installed two more similar data collection sites in the Tucson area, Tucson and Oracle. We got another one in Missouri. We put another one up in Sagal, and if you can go on our website and see the data collection on there. Have we still got that on there? Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say I'd be happy to, in our show notes, put the website URL for that so people can check it out.
So, of course, the further south you go, the less a discrepancy there is. And what we're finding in Arizona, if I lived in Arizona, I'd probably just lay mine flat. If I lived in Portland or Seattle, I certainly would, because on an overcast day, the flat panel collects more energy.
That's what, I found that really interesting. I saw that, the finding for that on the data collection site.
We uncovered a new phenomenon because previously no one had a reason to find that out because nobody was laying them flat.
I figured there's got to be a name for that, so I called some solar companies and say, I'm laying one flat and angling the other one at the optimal angle, and I got the same response from everybody. Why the hell would you lay it flat? So nobody had an answer, so we're assuming that you can get a sunburn on a cloudy day. The photons are still coming through the clouds, but if they're coming through and they're scattered, it's easier to hit something flat than something at an angle. So it outperforms on a cloudy day. So like I said, if I lived in Seattle or Oregon or Portland where it was overcast all the time, I'd lay mine flat.
So that's really good news for places like here in Seattle that get a lot of cloudy days.
We've been having a lot of those. Yes.
You can see I'm dressed in my regular summer attire here in San Francisco. And I've been really curious about the what the interaction has been like with other solar companies. Like we're obviously starting to see a surge in companies that are trying to encourage people to to use solar energy. Have those companies been reaching out to you to find ways to work together?
Well, at first I kind of thought they were a bit threatened by us. They thought we were going to be competitors, but now a lot of them want to be distributors. They realize that they can just add our product to their portfolio of offerings and become a distributor for us. So we're hearing from a lot of them now, and it's all positive.
We got a little blowback initially because they were, solar installers were scared we were going to put them out of business. Said, no, we're not going to put you out of business. We're actually going to use you. You already have a customer base. You're already an installer. You're just going to offer your customer a different kind of solar product.
Because they're working with homeowners anyway, so they can say, do you want panels on your roof? Do you want some panels on your driveway, your patio, your pool surround? Because the more they collect, the more that they can, power their home or their EV or whatever they're trying to power. And with more and more people getting EVs, they want to be able to power that with clean sunshine, not with fossil fuels. So the more solar or wind or renewables that they have, the more they're able to do that.
I feel like I have to ask this question, and it's okay if you don't have a perspective on it. So you probably know, of course, that Tesla is in the process of buying Solar City, actually, in an effort to combine the, their offerings. That what Elon Musk says is that the goal of Tesla is actually to move us off of our, off of our reliance on oil, essentially. And I'm curious on your thoughts on that. If that's consistent with what you're seeing? Like, Julie, you just mentioned that people that are driving electric vehicles are much more interested in solar power. Do you think trying to pull all of these pieces together makes sense?
Yeah, and one of our biggest goals is to facilitate the transition to EVs. First on parking lots, statically charging, and then eventually dynamically with EVs charging as they drive. And we're in talks with a company that makes those mutual induction charging place. You can talk about
It's
that.
Utah State University primarily. They have 4 other universities involved. They have a test track in Utah. It's a quarter-mile track where they drive electric vehicles around, and they mount a plate up underneath the EV, if you call it a receiver plate, and they've got coils in the track, and a transmitter plate, if you will, so when you drive over it, it's transferring energy into the car wirelessly. So if you have enough of these in a road, you're driving over it, and your EV is recharging as you're driving, which means you can require a smaller battery, which gives you better range, and this thing can typically or theoretically top it off. So they have this technology already, but currently, if they want to use it, they got to go dig a hole in the asphalt, lay their transmitter plate in, cover it, try to get power to it somehow, and then cover it up. And as vehicles are driving over it, it's getting destroyed. So they recognize that they have the technology and we have the delivery system. So you've got an electric road providing the power to charge the electric vehicles on top of it, and it's all done with sunshine.
So by working together, we can change the whole ballgame.
Very interesting. I'm curious, as we've talked to, more and more entrepreneurs that have used our platform, it seems like a lot of entrepreneurs face this challenge of, or face this question about how far they want to go on their own, or whether they want to try to move forward in partnership or potentially, as part of a larger entity. So we've had entrepreneurs on Indiegogo like Fossil, which made a device that tracked your activity on our, I'm sorry, not Fossil, Misfit, which tracked your activity through a watch-like device, and they ended up deciding that they'd be better suited in fulfilling their mission as part of Fossil, the large watch company, and Fossil ended up acquiring them. But we've seen with a lot of the entrepreneurs on our platform a real desire to try to go as far as they can on their own. I'm curious if you have a philosophy about that, or if you talk about that. Like if you're, do you envision eventually being part of a company that's got a larger mission around solar, or are you really committed to seeing it through independently?
Answer?
Well, we have a grand vision, and we want to help the economy of our country and every country by creating jobs. So we worry about, taking on investors or being acquired and not being able to do that. Having someone pressure us to outsource jobs for the bottom line. And we really want to help fix the economy at the same time. We have very specific things we want to do, like we want to use a cradle-to-cradle philosophy. We want to use as much recycling as we can. We want to make our product as green as we can. And so we worry about losing that vision. So we're trying to do this on our own, and Indiegogo has been, all the people that helped us on Indiegogo helped us get to this point where we're now able to go out and install public projects. We wouldn't be here without all the Indiegogo supporters. And I always say to people on social media, thank you for sharing the journey, because we really feel like we have friends from all over the world in just about every country who really believe in what we're doing and want to help us make it happen.
It's really, I think you guys have been doing an amazing job keeping all of your Indiegogo supporters, in the loop. I see all of the updates that you post, and it's really exciting because when you support a project and you get to keep following along the way. And I was wondering, do you get a lot of feedback from some of your initial supporters as well? Just this ongoing conversation?
I've got over 17,000 unopened emails in my inbox right now, and that's one of the things I feel so bad about. It's so incredible, but in the early days, we answered every email every day before we went to bed. And then there came a point where it was no longer physically possible. Now they fly in every day so fast that I feel bad, but unfortunately I've got to triage it.
I was like, they literally fly in as well and show up.
Literally fly in, yeah, which is a wonderful problem to have. It's a blessing, but we do feel bad. We put on our website, we're sorry that we can't get back to people quickly much of the time, but we're just overwhelmed. We're overwhelmed with support, and that's people wanting to be customers, people sending resumes that want to work for us, people wanting to invest, and journalists wanting to interview us.
When we first started our Indiegogo campaign, we had, 5,000 Facebook friends?
Now we're up to 87,000.
Yeah, so it's quite a following.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm really curious, in building such a following, one of the things that's been frankly sort of surprising to me is to see, on your Facebook page and elsewhere to sort of read about. I think drawing so much attention to what you're doing, of course, you've pulled out, you've drawn out some of the, for lack of a better term, the naysayers. And Julie, I'm really curious in your perspective, you have a background in psychology. I'm curious, one of the benefits, of course, like you mentioned, I think of having a campaign like you did on Indiegogo is that you bring all these people along on the journey, but then it also draws out, all of these people that are questioning what you're doing and the validity of the results of the tests and so forth. I'm just curious, on the other side, for those, what your thoughts are on, why people create, why people are so vocal in challenging what you're doing instead of finding ways to support you.
Well, I've learned that there are two groups. There's the sincere skeptic who just sincerely has a question, like, can't you see LEDs in the daytime? Or how's my car not going to slip on glass? Mm-hmm. And I've gotten really good at distinguishing those from the trolls. A troll, you're not going to, it doesn't matter what I say to them, they are going to come back with something negative. And there's nothing. But a sincere skeptic, I can turn around most of the time. I just give them a really polite answer and I explain it and they say, oh, thank you. And a lot of times those turn into big supporters. Mm-hmm. But you can tell I'm getting better. I think my psychology helps me to differentiate the two groups.
We've done presentations around universities around the country, and we've had people come up to us afterwards say, I came in here a complete skeptic. But
and I'm walking out a
fan.
believer. Yeah, wow. So many people, and Scott is so good and patient with Q&A. Even when people are skeptical, he doesn't get defensive, and I do the same thing on social media. We try to just be really authentically who we are, and I think people appreciate that.
No, it almost seems like sometimes when you have those genuine skeptics, it opens up a conversation and it allows you to engage in more of an interesting dialogue. I would say it's very much more compelling, when it's not just everyone going along with it, but you have an opportunity to explain it, and people are so interested that they are saying, what about this and what about that?
Yeah, and then on Facebook, other people may have wondered the same thing. So if I answer that person, other people can read it too.
Scott, I think you mentioned that in 3 weeks, you're going to do your first installation in Sandpoint.
Yes.
Is that right? You
Scheduled.
both seem incredibly calm for being 3 weeks away on this thing that you've been working on since 2009, or at least got your first grant for in 2009.
Well, keep in mind, we actually put the first installation in 2012. That was on our property. And that was a prototype parking lot. And the reason other than losing our privacy, we don't take people out there anymore because it is a prototype. We're trying different things. Half of the parking lot is monocrystalline, half of it is polycrystalline. We've got different kinds of laminate, we've got different kinds of connectors. So we don't, because it's always in various forms of disrepair. I'll pull this panel out, replace it with another one, and there's one missing here because I'm updating something. So we don't show that anymore. This will be the first public installation where it'll be permanent. And so it's not, we know it works, we've done it before.
And it's exciting. I'm so excited that people will have a place where they can go to see it without coming to our house and knocking on our door.
Yeah.
You know, people can just go and see it. And so we're trying to kind of spread them across the country, one in Idaho, then the next in Missouri, the next in Baltimore, and then we'll try to hit a couple other places. We're talking to somebody in Arizona, Florida, places like that. And that way people in various areas will all have a place they can go to see it on their own. And
Now that people will have an official place to go to see it, were you able to get it as part of, say, your agreement with the town of Sandpoint that the panels can actually say, now leave the Brusaws alone and let them do their work?
We're going to put that in on all of them.
Yeah. Could you describe a little bit about what the first installation in Sandpoint will be like? What size area is going to be covered? How many panels are going to be involved?
Like we said, Sandpoint's a small town. It looks like a frontier town. The buildings are really old. In the center of town, they have a fountain, and they call it the Jeff Jones Square. There's a public restroom there, so I think it's the only one in town. But part of the walkway there in front, they're going to take out some picnic benches and some concrete, and we're going to put 30 panels in there. And we're going to put a kiosk up so that it'll show how much power it's actually producing any given moment. So it'll be interactive. So we know a bunch of kids will jump on it. We saw something similar at Biosphere 2 in Arizona. They had a solar panel at an angle with a computer fan on it. So when the sun's shining on the panel, the fan's going at a certain speed. You step in front of it, it slows down. You step back. It's just a learning center. We're going to do something similar in Sandpoint. So all the kids can jump on the panels. The shadows will decrease the amount of power it's producing. They'll jump off, we'll go back up. We'll have some buttons there so you can press a button and a hopscotch pattern will show up in the LED light so they can play on it for a while.
we create various games for them
Yeah.
so they can change that between games. And there's a fountain right there. It's already a really family-friendly area.
That's exciting. And then in Missouri, is that a similar size installation?
It's a little bigger. It's a rest area alongside Route 66. It's the sidewalk that goes from the parking lot to the actual building where the bathrooms are. And they're installing a webcam so anybody anytime can log into their site and see the actual installation. I don't know if they're going to film us installing it or just afterwards. But you'll be able to zoom in there anytime and take a look at it. So you'll see what pattern's up there and people can see us keeping up with the snow, things like that.
It's a really nice welcome center, so virtually everybody stops there that's traveling along Route 66. And then everyone's really liking the idea of Route 66, which was our mother road, our first highway, becoming the first solar highway for our nation. And the press have really latched onto that, and we really love the idea too.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So in this is the second season actually that we've been doing the podcast. As we like to say, we got picked up for season 2.
Renewed.
And we've been talking with the interesting entrepreneurs about what the road has been like from funding until actual launch of the product, and you're on the verge of it right now. Before I turn it over to questions from our team here, I'd just be really curious, what have been both the sort of upside surprises post-campaign? What have been some of the things that were surprising to you that were maybe easier than you thought they might be because of the way maybe your community helped you, or just things that you thought might be hard that were easy? And what were things that were surprisingly difficult over the last couple years and getting from the time of the campaign to now?
The hard thing for me is the fact that they went back to R&D. We made the decision to go to Solar Roadways 3, and our third prototype, SR3. And so that created a delay. So people were anxious to see it and to see the installations. And because we made that decision, which I think was a wise decision because we made some valuable changes and we increased the solar efficiency and things like that. We made installation easier. We brought down the costs. But the impatience, because I try to really have good relationships with all of our supporters, and I treat them really well. I answer every comment on social media. But so many people are like, climate change is happening. We need this now. And we agree, we do need this now. But, you have to do what you can do within the bounds of your funding and the time and how many people you have. So some people are like, hurry up, and we're thinking, we're working 7 days a week. We are already hurrying as much as we can hurry. We just can't hurry anymore. So that's the hardest thing for me, is keeping enthusiasm up and explaining it to people so that they get it, so that they don't think that I think, in the beginning, some people think you get $2.2 million, you're gonna go off to Tahiti or something, and so we want to show people, no, we're being really responsible.
And we had one comment, somebody said, you get over $2 million, you should have paved half of America by now.
Yeah, so people have unrealistic expectations about how much money that is and what you can do with it, and so that's been the hardest thing for me, just making people understand that we are doing everything we can do and we're going as fast as we can go.
It sounds like, it definitely sounds like, part of the project that is a lot of work, but you both seem to have the interesting problem of having very excited supporters who want to meet you and people who are so excited for it to be done. And it's funny because I think a lot of projects would love that, but at the same time, it is a lot of work.
We're in that enviable position where we have a big customer base before we have a product. So.
Yeah, but the support from people, it keeps us going every day. It really does. People wonder, does it matter, that I'm posting to you on Facebook and telling you how much I like your project and how much I support you? And I always want people to know, yes, it does matter. We're tired sometimes. We're having a hard day. We're trying to push through. And I read people's comments, and it does make our day, and it does make a difference, and it encourages us. So people really do make a difference.
I'd like to turn it over to our team. Anybody has any questions for Scott or Julie? Now would be a great time.
Awesome. Thanks for coming in, and it's awesome for you all to be here. Questions actually related to what Dave was getting at, is like between the time that your campaign ended to today, what are some of the opportunities for Indiegogo to build into their product to help you during that time period? As we want to help you just from the start of the campaign all the way to your entrepreneurship kind of journey. So what kind of things can we do to improve your experience post campaign?
I'll tell you the biggest problem we had, like we said, over, I think, 30,000 perks to fulfill. What we learned is a lot of people who want to make a donation don't want to be bothered with solicitations or something, so they make up a fake or a temporary email address, make the donation, and then delete it. And if they order a t-shirt, there's no way for them to put a size in. So we would send them to the old email address, what size do you want, and it'd bounce back to us. And I mean thousands of them.
Some of those people, we still haven't been able to send them their shirt because we can't reach them.
So if there's a way to have like a drop-down box for things like sizes or colors or something like that, I think that would help a lot.
It is coming. Yeah.
Hi guys, I'm really excited that you guys are here. So this is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
I won't ask all the hundreds of questions in my head, but I have two that I'm interested about, which is maintenance in regards to upkeep of the panels, in actual road use, not sidewalk, because I'm sure not too many sneakers will do damage to them. And then, I know I read in the Kansas City Star that for Missouri, they're going to test out and see how much electricity gets put back into the grid. Do you guys have any general idea of numbers, what it could be on a perfect condition day of what would be going back into the grid, or would it just be maintaining locally, loss of electricity? Questions, oh my God.
What we did with what you see in the video that we built in 2012, the Phase 2 parking lot, our local utility company came in and put a net metering system in for us. And we have what's called an in-phase envoy that monitors how much energy is being produced. So the way it works is you run it through a microinverter, which turns the DC energy into 240 volts AC, which we feed right into our load center, your circuit breaker box. So my electronic shop at home is run off the electricity generated by the parking lot. I don't have air conditioning. I just got a little tiny refrigerator. There's nothing really energy intensive in the building. So during the day, the energy or the meter spins backwards, and I put the power back on the grid, and at night, I pull it back off. Now, it depends on how sunny it is, and of course, we're in North Idaho, and that's part of the reason we have those Phase 1 test centers around the country. you generate a whole lot more in Arizona than you would on the border of Canada. So there's no direct numbers. People say, how much energy does it make? Well, it depends on where you're at, what your latitude is, how much sun you get, how much energy you're using. For instance, if I activate those heating elements, that takes a lot more power than somebody in Arizona who doesn't use it. So there's no straight answer, but that's those test centers that we're putting up around the country will help us determine how much you can expect to get in your location.
And how much shading you have, and which way does your driveway face? Like, we have a southern-facing driveway, which is ideal. It slopes, that way. There's so many things, so individually, it's going to be different for every homeowner, business owner, location.
Seemed like there's a second part to your question, Dave.
Oh, the maintenance.
Maintenance, our parking lot that we've had since 2012, we just wash it off with a garden hose. But you're right, we haven't driven any trucks on it. So we signed our third contract with the Federal Highway Administration last November, and it's another 2-year contract, and in that it's all testing. Because while we're doing pilot projects now, and we're going to do what we call non-critical applications, which are sidewalks and parking lots and driveways, non-critical meaning if something goes wrong, we don't stop traffic. We're doing that while we're still working with the Federal Highway Administration to work toward highways. And so we've already done load testing, traction testing, impact resistant testing. This next round of funding is for moisture conditioning,
Shear testing.
freeze-thaw cycling, shear testing, and something called advanced loading. We'll be doing that at UC Davis, where we build a track, like an 8-meter track, and you take a weighted truck tire, like the maximum weight of a semi-truck, and they go back and forth 24/7. They can simulate 15 years of truck abuse in 3 months. And we're yet to see what's going to happen, because glass is so much harder than rubber. Asphalt, the components of asphalt are hard, but asphalt as a mix is soft. That's why you see ruts in the road. That's why airplanes can sink into them if it's hot enough. So I've talked to our glass experts, and I said, what's going to happen if truck tire goes over it 24/7 for 3 months? I said, nothing. It's rubber on glass. So we'll see. If it doesn't do anything, I'll have them put studs on it. If that doesn't do anything, I'll have them put chains on it.
Do we have any other questions? Oh, yes. Okay. And then-
Great to see you guys. I actually started at Indiegogo in April 2014, and I was on the support team. And I mean, Amber, I don't know, like so many of our tickets were Solar Roadways, and so I feel like this deep connection with you guys. I'm really curious. Did you guys always plan on crowdfunding? And I'm curious, like, if you tried to get traditional funding and how you kind of ended up, crowdfunding and Indiegogo, et cetera.
Now, when we first started, we hadn't even heard of crowdfunding, and we assumed that we would get a regular traditional investor at some point. And I think the first time we heard it, we were presenting to a college class, and they all started saying, you guys should do crowdfunding. And then they said, don't do Kickstarter, do Indiegogo. Indiegogo is much, they said there's something called Kickstarter, and that's really popular, but you should do Indiegogo. Indiegogo is much better. So we started looking into it. And that's when we thought, I think we should give this a try. And very happy we did.
All right, we have another question for y'all.
Hello, thanks so much for coming. This goes off of Michelle's last question, which is, one, it's a two-part question. So one is, were you surprised by the success of your campaign, or did you anticipate that it would be wildly successful? A lot of campaigners come to our site kind of to test if their product would do well in the market, and then they adjust their plan off of their crowdfunding campaign. And the second part to that question is, you mentioned you've had a lot of feedback and interest from your backers. Do you incorporate any of that feedback into your prototype or into your business plan? Has any of that feedback actually changed the direction of your business?
To answer your first question, we had no idea. We were brand new to crowdfunding. We just learned what it was. And we didn't even know how much to ask for.
No, we didn't.
Because we were coming to the end of our second round of funding with the Federal Highway Administration, which is keeping us going. We realized that's going to end soon. What's the next step? We either have to take on an investor or do the crowdsourcing thing. And then we decided, well, how much should we ask? We had a lot of people giving us feedback. You don't ask too much. Ask for $100,000, or people think you're greedy and you won't make it. And I thought, well, $100,000 doesn't do us any good. So we sat down, and Julie said, what do we need? I said, I need a team of engineers. We need a place to put them. So we figured right around $1 million, nice round number, we'll try that. We had no idea whether they're going to make 5,000 or 10 million, no clue.
But it was scary. It seemed kind of audacious, and some of the early journalists wrote that, you know, and then as we started really zipping along, they were like, oh, maybe they really are going to make this. And then, of course, we doubled it, which was just amazing. And in terms of your second question, feedback that we've incorporated, I don't think we've incorporated anything into the actual design that I can think of. People try to give us things that they think we've never heard of. Like I get emails that say, I have an idea for you. Have you ever thought about putting these on sidewalks? And they're, you know, and they're being so kind because they think we haven't heard about that. But almost always when people suggest things, we've pretty much thought it through. So, but it's nice that they're trying to help us.
So I think we're just about out of time, but before we leave, I'm just curious, in addition to the installations that you have planned, and it sounds like you've got a number of installations planned, I'm curious, what else is coming up in the future for Solar Roadways?
Well, there's a lot of other things we can't talk about. We only talk about potential customers that have given us permission. So if we could really tell you all the people that we're in talks with right now, you'd be very excited. But lots of big places. Two of them that I can talk about is both Idaho universities. And we're really excited. They're both trying to get funding for projects, and we think universities are a great application, and they can utilize them to train people, hopefully training some of our future employees. And they've really talked to us about how they're going to utilize them across all disciplines, you know, for engineers and business majors and marketing majors and art majors and architects, and you know, they can really utilize those panels for students and to boost enrollment and to train people. So we're hoping that once the first university goes, we'll get a lot of universities on board.
Sounds very exciting. Julie and Scott, I want to thank you again for joining us again here at Indiegogo. And Julie, I'll just say before we wrap up, the same way that you mentioned the way that when on those days where it gets hard, you'll read those comments from people. I know for so many of us, and for myself included, it's hearing the stories of the people that have used our platform and how it helps people that really gives us the energy each day. So I want to thank you both for being our guests. I want to thank you both for enabling us to be so energized by the work that we're doing. And that's it. Thanks for everything.
Thank you.